So, hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Fugitive Chefs podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest. We have Christian. Christian is connecting with us from Netherlands. And first of all, thank you, Christian, for connecting. I know you've recently gone through an accident, and for taking time out for this, I'm really grateful. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So, yeah, Christian, I mean, for people who don't know you, I think your journey is very exciting of the things you've done. But yeah, for somebody who doesn't know you, how do you introduce yourself?
Most of the time, I say I'm a fermentation specialist right now.
Uh-huh.
So I do a lot of things with fermentation. But if I have to say what I am, I think creative, that's the main thing. Everything I did in my whole life is about creativity, connecting dots. And now for the past 15 years, that's in the culinary industry. So, and my main thing now is fermentation.
Right. And just to go back to what was your first interaction with food? How did you get into what was your entry into this the world of food, professionally or not professionally? How did you get close to it?
Yeah, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I was cooking with my
Huh?
grandmother a lot.
Huh?
So I was always in the kitchen with my grandmother, and my parents, they let me be in the kitchen all the time. And I think I was 12 years old when I, for the first time, made a dinner for about 20 people. So I just had a cookbook, and
Mm-hmm.
it was so interesting. And I asked my mother for money and went to the shop, bought a lot of things I never heard of before, and started cooking. But when I was young, I never thought of being a chef or getting into the culinary scene. So I worked, when I was 20, I started to work in the creative industry. First, I worked with Apple for 5 years. And
Okay.
afterwards, I moved to an advertising agency. And
Uh-huh.
I have been a creative director in the advertising world. So I was head of the creative department of a big advertising agency. But I was always cooking. Cooking was my passion. And at one time, I think about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, my friends started to ask me all the time, "Can we eat at your house?" And then at
Mm-hmm.
one point I said, "Then you have to pay. I'm not going to cook every week for you."
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I started a restaurant in my own home.
Okay.
So I
Wow.
rebuilt my living room into a restaurant every month for a whole weekend, and I liked it so much that at one point I said, "Okay, I'm going to quit with advertising, and let's see if I can use my creativity that I have in the culinary world."
Mm-hmm.
And I was already doing a lot of things sustainable also in the advertising world. And about 16 years ago, I quit with the advertising company and I
Mm-hmm.
started my own culinary adventure, actually. So I had a pop-up restaurant. I did a lot of workshops, catering, the stuff, but
Yeah.
everything about sustainability. So
Okay.
the name of my company was Pure E, and
Mm-hmm.
the E was the short name for Ede, which is the place that I'm living in. So we use all local stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I was one of the first in Holland working with completely local ingredients. Yeah, and at one point I was started to make sauerkraut. My father made sauerkraut uh, in the past when I was young. He had a vegetable garden and he made sauerkraut. And in my memory, this was the best sauerkraut I ever had. So about 15 years ago, I asked him how he did it, and I wanted to use this in my pop-up restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so amazing, and it was much better than I could buy. So I started to look into what happened to my cabbage.
Mm-hmm.
The I live around a very important university, the Wageningen University,
Yeah.
which is a big food university. I live 5 minutes on the bicycle from the university.
Oh, wow.
13 years ago, the Department of Fermentation, the professor Eddie Smith, he asked me if I could join them in a festival and to show that you can also ferment at home. And that was for me the first time that people started to ask me, "Can you give me some lessons and workshops?" And 10 years ago, they started to ask me, "Can you write a book?" And at that point, it was still extra. It was just for fun and then I started to write the book just to sell with my workshops.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, this book started to sell really well. It's only in Dutch, and
Mm-hmm.
we sold more than 25,000 copies, and that's quite much for a small country like Holland.
Mm-hmm.
and it's still on sale every day. And because of the book, I became more involved in the whole fermentation scene, started to do research with the university, and now I think 80% of my job is around fermentation.
Okay. Wow. That's,
So
I mean,
that's a little short story
yeah, yeah.
of how it all started.
And it's a very exciting journey. I mean, you're starting from creative businesses and like being a creative person in these tech companies and like bring
Yeah.
that to food and like in your own context. I think it's super exciting. I think also, you being talented and having that past, but also I think Netherlands is a great platform because I remember last year I was in Wageningen for to give a workshop in FNA. It's a FNA
Yeah.
summit.
Yeah.
And also like I met so many exciting people. Frank Holleman from Furqan, we did like a workshop together,
Yeah.
and I realized how like you have all these great companies. Like I mean, the big ones, of course, Unilever, DSM, Feminic, and also the small startups. How much is happening in the? It's a really exciting
Yeah, it's
ecosystem to be
amazing.
around.
It's amazing in Holland. And I think this is also because we don't have a culinary past in
Mm-hmm.
Holland, like
Mm-hmm.
Spain and Italy and France.
Mm-hmm.
You have a culinary history. We don't have this. I
Right.
mean, and that's why we are probably more open-minded
Huh?
into to learning new stuff and really exciting about new things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm always happy to walk around in Wageningen and working with these people.
I mean, you just happened to mention something very curious because I've also been thinking this very often because now, I mean, with my work currently, we work on a lot of projects with, like, say, plant-based, for example, and most of the takers for it are like Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, because these cultures don't traditionally, due to the scenarios that happened, say, 100 years ago with the war and how things were, the food needs were met in a different way, and now there is this population which is very accepting of new ways of eating.
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, that new way in your kind of business, for example, is actually going back to something so ancient like fermentation. So it's also, very, very nice that how your concept of business or this idea that you have, all these concepts that you've tried with the pop-up, then the restaurant, then the book, it all ties together something so culturally strong into a culture which is open for something new but formed from something old.
Yeah, I really love it. I mean, when people say that fermentation is really exciting and new, I
Mm-hmm.
always have to stop them and say it's not new. I mean, we have been doing this for so long time. But the nice thing now is
Mm-hmm.
that we have the science, which
Right.
gives it the background and which makes it more exciting because we learn more and we see more and we can do it in a better way. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love this. I love to connect science with creativity
Mm-hmm.
and flavor. And the nice thing of working with the Wageningen University, they don't have a food grade lab.
Mm-hmm.
So everything they do there is only about does it work? And when I
Okay.
ask the professor how does it taste, he
Mm-hmm.
always says we don't know. So a lot of these things, then I try, or I get the recipe and we do it in my kitchen or my fermentation lab, and then
Mm-hmm.
we can taste. The working together with the scientists and the creative people and the chefs, I love this.
Yeah, that's cool. A multidisciplinary approach to things always brings out results. Then, yeah, they're
Yeah.
super exciting. The way different people see the same problem. But for me, before diving into fermentation, actually, also a great pivot. I think how your entry point into this industry, in your case, is super interesting for me because a lot of listeners who are listening to it either are chefs who are into restaurants and want to do something else, which is more maybe controllable, where they can their say social life or the conditions around their work they can maybe be in better control of. And I think, say, pop up restaurants or just doing these secret supper clubs and things like that are something which are not very new, but also I think it's a great escape kind of from a restaurant. Also, like to be able to say what you want to do apart from like what you do at your restaurant. So, how was that for you? Like, what were the challenges back then in Netherlands? Was it a known concept? How did you first get into
No, it
this?
was, I was actually, there was a really large article 15 years ago when I started the pop-up in a big Dutch newspaper. And it was about the new trend, which is pop-ups all over the world. And there was, Ede is really small. I mean, my town has 60,000 people. So
Mm-hmm.
this article was about New York, London, Amsterdam, and Ede, which was really funny because nobody was working in pop-ups, but I really loved it. So I built my restaurant every month. I started in my own living room, but
Mm-hmm.
then I extended it to places around my town. So every month I've built a restaurant for 1 week in an old farm, old empty factory in the middle of the forest, in the middle of the heather, on all kinds of, in between the cows in the middle of the field. So I've had the most crazy places, and I always like to tell people what the food is and to tell the story behind the food, not just to eat a nice dinner, but I want to tell something with it. And so I always build my kitchen with the pop-up next to the table where the guests are, so we can interact. And a lot of the times at the end of the dinner, when we were preparing the dessert, a lot of the times then the guests were helping with making the desserts, you know.
Wow.
It was just a friendly gathering, and I really love this. I mean, food should be about friendship. It's one of the most social things we have. I mean, sitting down and talking to people with nice food and a nice drink, and it makes us all connect better, I think. And that's what I really loved about the pop-up. But then doing the pop-up, I started to work for my municipality, Ede. Ede is one of the only towns in Holland where there is somebody in the city hall who's responsible for food. And together with Wageningen, Ede are the Food Valley, which is a few of the municipalities, which is all about sustainable food. So they asked me to work a lot for them, like projects, and we did a lot of projects. And then I came up with the idea to create a place where we can inspire people about good food. So I wanted to make a place where you can eat, you can grow vegetables, where you can see how animals live, where you can learn with a cooking school, you know, where there's a food lab where you can do research. And then about 8 years ago, the municipality came to me and said, we have this old army base and we take all the buildings from the army. The army is leaving the town, and there's an old sports hall, an old gym. And can your idea about this place in this sports hall?
Wow.
Otherwise we will break it down, and then we will make a park, a green park of 7,000 square meters. And then we started to think about the concept, made it on paper, and in 2020, just in the first week of the first Corona lockdown, we became the owners of the building and we started to rebuild the whole place. Now it's called Proeftuin Ede. A Proeftuin means experimental garden, but in Holland we say this for everything what is an experiment. So Proeftuin you also say when you want to test something on people. Yeah, there's where my fermentation lab is right now, and where I have my fermentation atelier where we give lessons, and we have the miso and koji area where we produce misos and kojis also for other chefs. And we have a garden, which is part of it becomes a vegetable garden, and a part becomes a food forest. We have our own pigs. We have 2 small pigs walking around that get all the waste that we cannot use. First of all, waste I use for fermentation, and when it's not edible anymore for us, we give it to the pigs. So we try to really show people everything about what is food.
Wow.
So now we stopped with the pop-up restaurant, and we have this the proof lab, the proof time.
Yeah, I mean, can't be more circular, right? I mean, all the concepts you're mentioning. I think it looks like. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't heard about this. I would love to take time out if work brings me again in Netherlands. Would love to come down and see this concept, because I think it could be like a model for many cities, big or small, to adopt something so circular and then show that this is possible. So you can involve this thing in your daily life as well, if it can happen in a small, like a living lab of sorts that you've made out there.
I read it. I think that's a good idea. I mean, we have to show the young people, the children, what is food about. I am always a bit angry about the school system, that that people learn a lot of things that are not necessary for life, and things like good food, social interaction, all these things. They should learn this. I mean,
Right.
and that's why I think if every town has a place where you can go with young children to see. We have the pigs, but in the end, when they are big, they go to the slaughterhouse and we eat them. And they are actually walking behind the bar. So we have a glass window between the bar and the stable where they live.
Okay.
To show people. I mean, if you drink a beer, you can see the pigs if they are inside. Normally they are outside. But I want to show people it's okay to eat meat, but you have to know that it's a living creature. And a lot of people forget this. I mean,
Yeah.
so and that's what we want to show also to the children, that okay, but it's okay to eat meat, but always remember when you eat meat that this was a living creature. So
Hmm.
be respectful for the things you eat.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, consciousness is what makes us human. And the disconnect we have now from like seeing a ham which is square or circular in a
Yeah,
mortadella is what
yeah.
makes us suddenly, yeah, especially when it's coming in a plastic packaging, there's no interaction with the animal, and how we are disconnecting the city from the farm is huge. And I think it's small examples like these. You don't need to always be reminded, but I think these subtle reminders being a part of, I mean, also casually, I think also what I've faced now with many new kind of segments of products or companies which are wanting to like market, and always they say, education is the most difficult part of asking somebody to choose my functional drink, say, above a soda. But I think
Yeah.
education, the way you are doing it, which is subtle, it's not loud, it's incorporated in your daily life. That's what I think takes the long run and makes a bigger impact. Yeah. Pivoting from this, like how you mentioned sustainability, when I was reading about you, and I would like to know, like, because sustainability, when you started trying to pick up on it, I don't think it was as trendy. It's unfortunately become a trend, and then you see a lot of greenwashing and all these things, which are a result of something we thought would be great if everybody knows about it, but we are seeing now how it's going. How was it for you back then, and how do you see the transformation right now on a smaller scale in your ecosystem, but also on the bigger scale?
Yeah, when I started doing this, it was just out of respect for the whole planet. I mean, I've always been respectful for other creatures. I mean, the planet we have to share it. Even we don't, not only with other humans, but with animals and plants and microorganisms. We forget
Mm-hmm.
them
Yeah.
many times, and we should be respectful. And this is how I started to work more sustainable. And I think especially when we work more local, use more local stuff, then we get more, we can handle a lot of the sustainable questions. I mean, when you work local, you can see what is necessary, how the logistics is done, how the farmer is growing it. I mean, there are so much stupid things. If you look at how many potatoes are going from Holland to Germany, it's
Mm-hmm.
the same, it's almost the same amount as coming from Germany to Holland. I mean, why? How? How? And it's all about money. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we should do more locally and
Mm-hmm.
be more aware of the things we need. Yesterday, I gave a class of chefs,
Mm-hmm.
students, and I always tell about this fermentation. They ask, well, it's so trendy and stuff, and I said, but it's not. And also, I get a chance to talk about fermentation and waste a lot all around Europe, and people say, okay, this is really new and hip that you make something out of waste,
Mm-hmm.
but almost everything that is fermented, we have because our ancestors didn't want to waste anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the blue cheese, somebody saw a blue cheese for the first time. And if we would have seen a blue cheese for the first time, we would trash it.
Right.
We would trash it. And I mean, and that's for every fermented thing we have. It's because our ancestors didn't want to trash anything. I mean, fish sauce. Who came
Mm-hmm.
on the idea to mix fish intestines with salt and leave it for a year and then use it? I mean, we
Yeah.
would never do this as a modern, but in the past, there was no waste. I mean, people use their common sense and logic thinking, and they use everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, it's I mean, I remember this lecture I had from Douglas McMaster, and he says this thing like waste is the failure of the imagination, because like the nature always has a way to process waste. I mean, there is no waste. The nature system is very circular. It's just when you make sugar, process it, and put it in a 1 kilo packet, and then you're using that sugar, say 50 kilos in a restaurant, and still buying those 1 kilo packages, and the packages then become the waste. And it's just so much of it, I think, is like easily avoidable, just if you think. And I mean, I understand restaurant business or life in general is fast paced, we don't have time, but then again, it's about why we don't have time, where is that time being spent, and where is it not being spent. Like that, it comes
Exactly.
down to how much you want to care about these things.
I see this with the students also as
Mm-hmm.
well. I see them. They take the beetroot and then they cut really nice balls. I explain them how to make pickles, and they cut really nice balls, put them in a jar, and then I say, okay, but what are you going to do with the rest? I mean, it looks nice, a little ball, but what are you going to do with the rest? You trash it just because the ball looks nice? I mean, you can use the whole thing. That's something that also should be at schools. And I see this not so much in the chef schools. I teach a lot of fermentation at a lot of chef schools, and it's everywhere the same thing. You know, they have 3-4 years of study, but they waste so much. And the problem is when they leave school, they think that's the normal thing to do. I mean, you know, and they come to a restaurant. They work in a restaurant where they do the same thing, and we stress too much. I mean, we do.
Yeah, I mean, and like looking at it sustainable, how we both agreeing, you know, it's something so logical, and it's still amazing how it still continues to be a big problem. And how do you see over here, for example, the participation of governments, legislation, like the new laws we are seeing coming out of EU, for example, about the food waste law? They're creating this where it's like fined if you're kind of trashing food and things like that. You think things like that are going to have a big impact just because it's related to, say, money, which people, I think, care more about?
The law should change. I mean, if I look at the law in Holland, and I think it's all over Europe a bit the same, then fermentation is not allowed. That's something that's not allowed. If you look at the rules for the groups that do the checks, then you know, food when it's prepared, you can leave it for 2 days in the fridge in a restaurant, and then you trash it. But there's nowhere a rule about mixing it with salt, then making something sour, which is even more safe to eat than raw vegetable. And I had a few months ago, I had a discussion with one of the controllers. Okay. And then he said, you're right. He said, I'm making sauerkraut at home. I know it's safe, but it's the rule. It's the rule. But then I asked him, I said, okay, look, if I got 2 cabbages, the one I cut and mix it with salt, put it in a jar, close it airtight for 1 week, leave it at room temperature. And the other cabbage I put next to the jar. Which one am I allowed to eat? And then he said, the raw one. I said, but you know, that's less safe than the one in the jar because the jar, we kill everything we don't want with sourness. And that's the super thing. We should make rules for this, that the things we did in the past, that they are okay to do. A lot of the industry are having problems with this. I'm creating my own misos and koji because I see that a lot of chefs are struggling with making koji and miso and soy sauces and garum. And when they taste it, everybody wants to have it and use it because I think it's still one of the most magical fermentations there is. So we are creating koji in a bit. We have a fermentation room where we can make 150 kilograms of koji every 2 days. But by law in Holland, I mean, it's not allowed to do this. And when I say to the controller, go to Japan and see what they do there for thousands of years, our government should change this. And the strange thing is that one part of the government knows. I mean, you have the health departments of the government. They know because in Holland, the health department is saying more and more that we have to eat more dirty. We should add more living microbes to our diet because it's good for your health. But then the other part of the government is saying it's not allowed. And that's so stupid. I mean, we should really make better. We should use common sense in this and make laws in this way. Look at the past. And if our ancestors could make this kind of stuff without knowing anything about microbes, then we can do it even in a better and a healthier and a safer way.
Yeah. I mean, and that leads me to like what you've just mentioned, you know, like how we are today more aware thanks to science, thanks to tech. And my next question for you was like, okay, we understand. I mean, governments are always the last people to catch up with times, especially, I mean, we are in European Union. Imagine what's happening outside and what's happening in other cultures. Or maybe it's better because they don't have so much control and legislation.
No.
So people can, you know, I don't know, in East Europe, the people are doing a lot of fermentations, which is maybe not even permitted to be here.
No,
but yeah, thanks to lose
like fish sauce in Asia.
Exactly.
If we would make this in Europe in the way they do, then we have a problem.
No, but this was leading to me to the next question, which is like, okay, that's one side of thing, like bureaucracy and governments. But then again, there's the private sector, which has suddenly taken a lot of interest into fermentation. Tech is growing big, and not just fermentation. I mean, sustainability also, because we are seeing tech startups like there's Vino, there's Orbisk, there is Too Good to Go, and many different approaches to how things can be sustainable, how you can reduce waste using AI. I'm seeing a lot of AI into agro-tech and also sustainability. And then there is the other side of tech, which I see a little disturbing, is when tech is also trying to agree to legislation. So you have like a lot of fermented products, which are then pasteurized and filtered. And then I do not know how much of the good microbes are transferring to the end consumer who's consuming the kombucha or kefir, assuming they're getting all the good microbe. So how do you see the role of tech right now? Because I mean, we are living in the age of where tech is a part of everything.
I love tech. I'm coming from this world, and I always say I changed it now. In the past, cooking was my hobby and tech was my business, and now it's the other way around.
Right.
So I really love AI. I think it makes a lot of things easier, and people don't have to be afraid of losing jobs or jobs will change, and maybe we will work less but things will change, and you use it as a tool. When you use it as a tool, then there's a world of possibilities. There's so much you can do exactly with waste. I mean, we should learn people that when they have something left over, just ask ChatGPT what to do with it.
Yeah.
And he will give you an answer on it. I think there's a lot of possibilities with tech.
No, I just heard the other day that I was going to say that you have this chatbot that you've made.
Yeah. So I wrote 3 books about fermentation.
Uh-huh.
Verrot Lekker, which is all about fermentation, from sauerkraut to soy sauce, and then that's 10 years old. Then I have one about health and fermentation, and I have my latest one is about sourdough, and then not from the baker side, but from the microbiologist. I always say when you know more about your microbes, you can bake a much better bread.
Exactly.
And I've put all the data from my books in a ChatGPT app. So I made my own ChatGPT app and put all my data in. I trained it for a few months, and especially for the non-Dutch speakers, which is the most of the people in this world, so they can use my books as well, because I see my books not as a way of earning money, but really as a tool to teach people, to inspire people about food. And I'm really happy that I could make this chatbot with ChatGPT. So you can ask him anything. You can ask him about how misos are made. You can ask him what is the skin on top of my kombucha.
Okay.
You can ask him about I have some, I don't know, I have the leaves, the green of my carrots. Can I ferment it? You can ask him anything.
Wow. That's really cool. And I mean, yeah, it's also like a great thing how, I mean, you're also like breaking stereotypes of people, how they look at chefs. I mean, mostly chefs are seen as people not very tech savvy, not very friendly with tech. And what you said about AI is completely right. I mean, I was reading this blog the other day which said like, okay, AI might reduce the need for some jobs, but the people who will have jobs in the future are the ones who know how to use AI. Because in the end, it will need a human input. So people who want to use your bot, Christian, how can they go about it? How do you use it? How do you get to use it?
It's in ChatGPT. It's only if you have the paid version of ChatGPT that you can use the bot. Just look for fermentalist, and then that's the name of it, and then you will find it. So,
oh, lovely! I'll try to put it on the description as well, so people can check it out.
Nice. Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, I would really love to have my books in English, but it's hard to get a publisher. But actually, 2 of my books are now nominated for best cookbooks in the world. Yeah, Verrot Lekker is nominated for best fermentation book. And I'm a finalist with 5 other books, worldwide books, and my sourdough book is nominated for best bread book in the world. So hopefully, in this way, I can find a publisher that will publish it in English.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, congratulations and all the very best.
Thank you
For the next rounds. And coming back to like where you are right now, like Netherlands as a context, how do you see the Dutch cuisine right now? Because I know you were also part of like movement of Dutch cuisine, and like how's Dutch cuisine doing at the moment compared to where the world is?
Yeah, Dutch cuisine is actually I'm an ambassador for Dutch
Mm-hmm.
cuisine, and it's about sustainability. We have a few rules, and it's about that we use at least 80% plant-based material in our food. We use local. We use vegetables from the season. So it's about again about using common sense
Mm-hmm.
ingredients and creating smart dishes with it. Holland has always been a country of simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
Our design is always really simple but beautiful, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and the food here as well. So it's about good ingredients with not too much preparation. Let the ingredient speak for itself. I think fermentation is one of the things that helps the Dutch cuisine with getting this flavors. A lot of the best chefs in Holland have been at my master classes for fermentation. A lot of them are fermenting things. Actually, the day before yesterday, I was at the Libraille with 3 stars to teach them about misos and soy sauces and gardens and gojis and stuff. Because a lot of the Dutch restaurants are plant-based. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
the good restaurants are more and more plant-based. I mean, the best vegetable restaurant in the world was the Nieuwe Winkel in Nijmegen for 3 years in a row. And we have a lot of these kinds of chefs that really love to use vegetables. And the thing is, with fermentation, you can make vegetables really taste like the best piece of meat, and that's why I'm teaching them a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the Dutch cuisine. It's about good quality ingredients, local, from the season, sustainable, and simple but good,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
tasteful.
Yeah, I mean, of all the things you've spoken now, like for example, part of this being an ambassador, for example, so you've mentioned like doing a tech job, then a pop-up restaurant chef, then a restaurant chef, then educator, and now activism. I mean, which role do you right now think you put the most time into? I mean, of course, you're also an entrepreneur at the same time, an author at
Yeah.
the same time. So, what is these days taking most of your time, and what would you like to be doing these days?
I think an inspirator. I
Mm-hmm.
really, without raising my finger, that people have to live in a certain way. I
Right.
just try to inspire them by the food itself, by letting them taste them. I took a lot of misos to the Libraille, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing they loved the most was the miso made out of old bread. I mean, we waste 30% of our bread in
Mm-hmm.
Holland. I think it's everywhere the same thing in Europe, but it's an amazing ingredient for miso.
Mm-hmm.
You just let the mold grow on it, add salt, and wait for a long time, and you get a flavor like a chicken fond, which is completely plant-based, made out of waste. I mean, even if you tell the story at the table with your guests, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the story itself gives the dish an extra point, And I think, yeah, this is so. I see myself as an inspirator. Just by making things and showing people things
Mm-hmm.
how to do it. And I'm not the kind of guy that goes around and saying, "Hey, you have to do this," because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many different people, so many different thoughts, and everybody has to figure it out by himself, I think.
No, definitely. I mean, also what you said, like I think for inspiring, I think fermentation is a great vehicle because yeah, it gives you, for example, right now I think at some point diners are tired of, I mean, there was the age of molecular gastronomy, then a lot
Yeah.
of gimmicky stuff, and then all the premium stuff like serving foie gras and caviar with everything. And now is the age where the diner wants more. They want more like a personal story. I mean, storytelling is a great component. Some kind
Yeah.
of a fun game component is what many diners are looking for. And I think fermentation gives you a language where you can tie these things together, involve culture. Ironically, culture being also
Yeah.
culture, like fermentation.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing that connects diners. So I think everybody should be more interested in the work that you're doing because it gives them a new for an artist a new color to play with, and then use it in your context.
Yeah, and I see that everybody connects with
Mm-hmm.
fermentation. I'm giving workshops, master classes, and courses now for 12, 13 years. I never had somebody leaving the building and saying,
Mm-hmm.
this is not for me. Everybody has a connection. I think that, I mean, deep down inside, we all know and we all feel and we all can taste that this is the real food. And that this is, I mean, we have been eating this for 15,000 of years. And it's in our DNA, I'm sure that there is a connection. I mean, our gut is saying this is the right food that I want. But
Yeah.
I've never had anybody leaving. Of course, somebody doesn't like kimchi or somebody doesn't like a funky fish gare. That's true. But there's always something that everybody likes. It's part of life, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely is. And also, like, I wanted to ask you because I was talking to John the other day, colleague of mine, and I think you know him already. He was on the podcast also before, and he mentioned that, for example, you're also participating in European Union projects together with us at BCC and things like that. I would also like to know because I think, like, when I work for a research organization now, I think it's easier to say go into a European Union funded project or a government funded project. So, like, using public money, public funds to do a purpose like this. And how does it work for somebody who's, like, for me in my head, it's like somebody who's an individual having their own entrepreneurial business. So I would also like people to know that it's possible for people like you to kind of get attached to these organizations, you know?
Yeah, this is a project for 4 years where we do a lot of research on waste streams from the industry, and the BCC is connected, but it started at the Wageningen University. So actually, the whole project is run by the Wageningen University, and they asked me to join for the creative part and also for the testing. So I'm going to test the things that they do. I'm going to make the same things they do at the lab again at my place, and then
Right.
test it on guests because it's really a big study because
Yeah.
there are different PhDs working with it. One fermentation, of course. One is safety, so on the bed bugs, and there's one, but also one student of social science who's going to do the research on how consumers accept it or reject it. So
Right.
it's really quite a big study. So, but actually, I was not involved in the subsidy part of it. Yeah, of course, I wrote a little bit of the things I will do, but I think you have to connect with yeah, researchers and universities. I think that's the best way to do. I mean, they have the connections to a lot of companies and governments and stuff to do these kinds of things. So yeah, I'm really happy to work with Wageningen University in this way.
I think it's a great point that you mentioned that, I mean, connecting with your local ecosystem, connecting with universities near you, academia, but also like what you did with the city council, for example, in your city. I think it's also one kind of resource people should tap into, especially when answering like bigger issues like sustainability or fermentation, because as you said, European Union projects involve not just researchers but also end consumer, their feedback, and make it like a back and forth process. So I think that's the best way to go, because mostly companies, what they do is they do their own market research, but they push something into the market and the consumer then has to either adapt to it or the product fails. So I love these researches, which are at the end also, the good thing is they're open source, so people can look at it and learn from it and apply it to their context, you know?
Yeah, I really love that. I mean, a lot of this research should be done not only by scientists but together with. I like the living lab. What you said about my proof
Yeah.
town. I like when a lot of people from different knowledge points or different experiences connect to a project because the end result is better everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I loved. I mean, I've created a lot of fermented products and we could always test them in my restaurant. So at one point we created a completely plant-based sausage, and
Okay.
we could test it together with the other sausage and charcuterie on a platter. And then when at the end when we asked our guests, what did you think of the sausage? And they said it was good. Why? And then we said, okay, it's plant-based. So I really love to connect
Wow.
also with the guests and the consumers. And we do this with a lot of things. So the consumers should be part of it,
Yeah, no,
of
I'm
research.
completely couldn't agree more. I think also what we're losing as a society, the more different style of life that we're living today, I think a sense of community, a sense of belonging is kind of being lost, which is why a lot of studies are saying that people are starting to cook less, people have more, there's more solitude. Like in Japan, when we go for many of the projects we are doing now in the past years, Japanese government is studying now why is there so much of solitude in Japanese community and societies, and it's slowly happening over here as well. People are spending more time alone. So I think initiatives like yours, especially food, I think it's the only thing that you put inside your body. I mean, apart from pharmaceuticals, which is something altogether different, but it's a major chunk of what you put into your body, and connecting people on that. I think there could be nothing beautiful. And this gives me the opportunity to also ask you about the future, ask you about where do you see the food system leading, initiatives like you, of course, you being in the community of these kind of initiatives, you must be hearing of other people doing good, bad, succeeding, not. But how do you see the future for yourself?
I think about 15 years ago, I was really like a lone rider. And now
Mm-hmm.
there are so many chefs and so many people
Mm-hmm.
working in to get a better food system. And I think the future is good. I think we are looking into a bright future, even also with AI. You know, in the 80s, people were afraid losing jobs because of automation with computers and stuff, but it didn't happen. People started in Europe to work less. So I think with AI, it will be the same thing. In the end, we will start to work less,
Mm-hmm.
and then people have more time to see what is really important in life. And I
Mm-hmm.
already see this in my workshops and stuff. I have almost every Saturday I do a workshop. Every Saturday is a different topic.
Mm-hmm.
People come from all over Holland and Belgium, and from young to old, from all kinds of careers. Some people have vegetable gardens, other people just want to cook really nice. And
Mm-hmm.
I see that more and more people are looking for better food. I mean,
Right.
if a lot of people are fed up with everything you read in the news about food,
Mm-hmm.
and even the big companies. I mean, like Unilever, the main head office of the where they do a lot of research is in Wageningen as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been connected with them for the past 2 years, and I do a lot of things with them because they also want change. They also
Of course.
wanna do it more sustainable. I mean, also people in the boardroom of this big
Mm-hmm.
industrial,
Mm-hmm.
they have children and they have grandchildren. I mean, everybody wants a better world for their children. So I think the future is good. I think we
Yeah.
are looking into a good future.
No, it's very nice
But
to. Yeah, there's a
but
but.
but there's a but.
Yeah.
Why? Because I think when I talk about the good future, it's the good
Mm-hmm.
future, I think, in Europe, Western Europe. I
Mm-hmm.
think the future looks good. But if we would look at the world, at the whole globe, at the whole planet, I think we have to look at how the people on the other side of the world, where they are poor, where they work
Mm-hmm.
much more, when we don't connect with them, then the future for the complete planet, I don't know. I don't know. And I think we have to take more care of them
Mm-hmm.
and to see if we can connect with them. Because if you have to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, just to get some bread and a place to sleep for your children, you are not thinking about plastic in the ocean. And you are not thinking about, chemicals in your vegetables because the only thing you want is a vegetable that you can pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and if we don't change this, then I don't know. Then I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, it's I mean, you have all the right reasons, because I mean, it looks very far, but it will come down to us in the end. Western Europe is a very small chunk of these countries which have a lot more population. I mean, I was born in India myself, so I know how things are back home. And these countries, with the amount of population there is and the amount of people there are, any small impact coming out from there is a big one on our comparative scale over here, But I mean, but I loved the whole response, the optimistic part, and also this thing which is not, I wouldn't say negative, but I think it's the earlier we wake up to it, the better, the lesser problems we'll have to deal with. But I also loved in your answer how you mentioned about the big companies, because I see now that in BCC, when we have students who are doing masters in gastronomic science and we tell them about big companies, it's the normal ideas. They're always demonized. They're the bad people. But in the end, I think, I mean, if you want to damage the system, and if you're a big food company, an FMCG, it's going to take you out of business. So it's not good for business either to have evil intentions. So I do not think, I choose to believe, as you say, nobody has even intentions. They have people in the system. And I mean, also Unilever, for example, I went to the Hive lab, the thing they're doing with
the Hive,
local chefs. Yeah, the community they're building over there. I think there's a lot of these companies are doing great initiatives, and it also sets a platform then for smaller people to catch up to that trend, use those studies that they do, and it prepares the consumer also to accept products that I mean, if a big company about, say, a commercial miso soup, it gives the consumer then knows miso, and then they will come to learn how you make miso. So I think we all have this role in the system, and everybody's role is equally important. So yeah, really looking forward to the positive future like you are. But yeah, I think this is a nice part to conclude for me. And I think we've learned. I mean, I heard about you, I've read your books, and we are on some common things together. But yeah, this interview gave me the opportunity to like know more about your whole tech side, which I had no idea, coming to pop-ups, and then entrepreneurial, educator, activist. It's really cool, and I really think the people listening to this, you have inspired them. As you say, your mission of inspiring, I think, has included a few more listeners today. So yeah, any last words if you have, Christian?
I really love to connect with you and with every every chef, every scientist that works on a better world. Food is fun as well. Having a nice dinner, making a fermentation that you never done before, tasting something you never tasted before. It's also fun. Yeah. And if you can connect the fun part and the tasteful part with a more sustainable living, then I'm very happy. So I hope to inspire, go out there and look for the small creatures that makes our food really nice and sustainable. I mean, fermentation is one of the best ways to be more sustainable with all of us.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Christian. I'll let you go.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.